Good afternoon, and welcome to the biggest episode yet and the first face reveal of Tailgating with the Boys. We are officially 35 days away from Selection Sunday, and honestly, things could not be tighter in all of college basketball. The SEC is deep. The ACC is honestly the weakest it has ever been. You have the NIL argument there. The
Big
Big
time.
East is, yep, the Big East is slowly making a case for five teams with X right there on the bubble. The Big Ten is going to be the Big Ten, the same conference they are every year. They were the same in football this year as well. And with that being said, the boys are the boys. Big week for Xavier basketball. We kind of coming off a win against Georgetown. Um, we have our first ever recurring guest today, which we'll dive into here in a little bit. Um, but overall, this basketball season's been a very up and down one. Not only for Xavier, but for my gambling life as well. It's been very up and down all the last couple months. Um, but overall, we're having fun, man. Shout out. You guys can see the boys behind me all ducked down. Eldo, baby. Had to get you
Yes,
guys in
sir.
here. But we're living the dream. I just started a new job. Carter just put a down deposit on the place. I mean, where things are
Yeah.
getting in motion. Like I said, it's our first live episode. We're really excited to do this. It's a big step for us. So with that being said, Carter, how are we doing? How are you today? How are things in the
Uh,
college basketball world?
yeah, doing great. As I'm sitting here, actually, the Warriors just acquired Jimmy Butler. Um, Totally off topic for college basketball and what we've been doing, but I feel like that's huge, especially when 3 days ago Jimmy Butler literally said he doesn't want to go play for the Warriors. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I agree. Basketball's been awesome this year. Betting's been kind of up and down. I did take a step back a little bit from how much I was betting for football season. But I have been betting on Xavier and other things like that. Some fun, some days are bigger than others for college basketball. It's not like Saturday for football where we have all of them in one day. It's spread out throughout the week. Um, but college basketball's been great. The Big East, like you said, starting to heat up a little bit. We have four teams currently in there. I know I was looking at bracketology this morning while I was eating breakfast and stuff, and we currently have four teams, like you said, with the fifth team being Xavier sitting right there at the end, and probably should jump into there after that home win against Georgetown, which was a great win. I know we'll dive into that in a little bit, but I've been loving college basketball. It's been great. And just real quick, I know we were talking about it earlier, and I wanted to make a point of saying it. Um, Jim Knowles is gone. I know we talked about that in the college football recap episode. And then shortly after that, Chip Kelly took the offensive coordinator job for the Raiders. He's going to be under, I believe, Pete Carroll is the head coach for the Raiders. So that's good for him. And kind of like we talked about, Hartline will take over as the offensive coordinator, which that did not take us long to name him offensive coordinator, which I think is the great play. He is responsible for bringing in all these top receivers, Jeremiah Smith included, who is an alien, according to Will Howard and the rest of the team. He's just unbelievable. And so I wanted to touch on that. But yeah, college basketball's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm hoping that Xavier can make this push towards the end. Um, I didn't have much to talk about. I just wanted to hit on a couple things before we dive into the rest of this episode. But I do think there are clearly some top teams in the country right now. Auburn being the clear number one. I think they are unbelievable. Um, and then they got their star player back and still just don't miss a beat. So I think they're going to be great. Obviously, we have Cooper Flag and Duke doing what they do, and I don't think they'll be touchable in the ACC as the ACC is kind of having a down year this year. Um, but yeah, I fully agree. Basketball's been awesome, and I can't wait for March to start heating up with conference tournaments and then obviously the big one. Hey, you're on mute, my friend. I can't hear you.
Yeah, it's been great. Do you want to get our guests in here?
Yeah, let's bring him in. Like you kind of hinted at, we're bringing back an old guest in Mr. Gartner, who has been busy, has hands full. Welcome in, my friend. We're glad to have you on. I'm glad to have you back. How you been?
Man, been great, man. Missing the podcast, of course. Happy to be back.
Yes, sir. We're happy to have you back.
Just been staying busy. You know how it is.
Yeah, yeah, I know. We look good. I mean, the boys have Boys are on the right track. I know, like Brady and I were talking about earlier this week, we were on the bubble there as one of the first four teams out. I think after that great Georgetown win at home, probably puts us into one of those first four teams in, or maybe even above that. But I think we're on a great roll and we look great.
Yeah, just gonna try and go one at a time here. Get
Exactly. That's all
with the
we can do.
beat.
That's
Yes,
all we
sir.
can do.
How have the boys
Um,
been?
living. As you can see, I got this beautiful hat on. Uh,
National champs, baby.
College
That's all
football
that
national
matters.
championship. This hat took way too long to get
Yeah.
shipped to me. It took me about 3 weeks for it to come, but finally showed up, and I haven't taken it off my head much.
I'll say congratulations, man. Did I want it to happen? No comment, but they had a spectacular year.
You weren't rooting for Notre Dame. Come on.
No,
Clemson boy.
I wasn't rooting for
He's
them.
Clemson.
a Clemson
Clemson.
boy.
I
So
was focused.
He
I
was
was
done
focused on
quick.
college basketball. How about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all that
Yeah.
matters.
They
All right.
got
Well,
they got hot at the right time.
that's
Indeed.
all. That's all it takes in all sports right now is get
Indeed.
hot
Now
at the right time.
they're losing
We
their
don't,
coaching staff now, man.
yeah, we don't have any coordinators left, but that's all right.
It's fine. I'm on the docket. They're calling me here here shortly.
Yeah, he's newly employed, but won't be at the new job for very long. He's going to head up to Columbus.
Would love that. I'd
Dream, dream.
support Ohio State at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, with that being said, I think we should dive into arguably it is the deepest conference in college basketball right now, the SEC. Something I hinted at in our very first college basketball episode is if they will beat the record of 11 teams getting into the March Madness tournament, which the Big East currently holds from 2011, I believe, if I'm correct.
Yep.
Um, do we think that is going to be broken this year? And going off that, how deep is the SEC? Could we see some of these teams kind of beat up each other down the stretch and none of them make a run? Which that's what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to beat each other up. I think Auburn is truly the 1-1. I'm not going to argue against that. I won't argue against that at all. But they're deep. I think they break the record. I don't know where you guys stand on that, but that's where I'm at.
No, I think you're exactly right. The SEC's loaded, loaded. Obviously, Auburn. I think they're gonna they're gonna be a very deep run come March. You were talking about beating up each other, and I think that's a very high possibility. You kind of saw it last year. Like obviously I'm a little biased in the Big East. Only a few teams getting in. Seton Hall was right there. They probably should have got in. They didn't end up winning the NIT. But teams like Kentucky, you see them right now. Like they were a top 10 team like 2 weeks ago, and now they've dropped a couple. They lost to Ole Miss, lost to Arkansas. And then you have teams like the Arkansas and Ole Miss, like they could go on a run.
Yeah,
So
100,
I really,
100%.
I don't know about breaking the record, but it's a very, very high possibility. Absolutely loaded conference.
It's kind of similar to football too, in a little bit of a sense of there are so many dominant teams. At what point, are we going to find out who's better? And is it going to be a case where we have to go through so many good teams and so many, difficult schedules and stuff that that team is kind of dead come March and they're tired a little bit, fatigued, would be a good word to use. But I do think Auburn is so good. I mean, even without Broom there for a little bit, what was it, probably 3 weeks or so, they were without him, and they did not miss a beat whatsoever. They still had guys going for 20, still beating teams by 20. So I think they'll be really good. I think they have the best chance out of all the SEC teams to make a run. Um, but I do think they beat the record. It's going to be so close. I was looking at the bracketology stuff this morning that ESPN has. They currently have 13 teams in the bracket, which is nuts to me. I think they have 10 in the top 25 right now. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's definitely 9 or 10 in the top 25. So I think they're going to be close. As of now, they have three of the four number one seeds, which is blows my mind. I mean, the fact that you have three of the four number one seeds, Duke being the other one, and not to mention you're probably going to have at least one or two other SEC teams in your region. It gives the SEC a good chance of, at the end of the day, winning that national championship. But I do think Auburn has the best chance out of all of them. I know Brody was also talking about a little bit the other team that I think is not leaps and bounds better than everybody else, but somebody who's like, okay, this team is really good and should beat pretty much everyone is Duke. Cooper Flag is almost unstoppable in a sense of he can do kind of whatever he wants um, from an offensive standpoint to score the ball. Um, he's really good, but I think those are probably my top two teams at the moment.
Yeah, I'll circle back and keep on the SEC. My thing is with the SEC is none of those teams have proven to win on the road but Auburn. And I think once they get on a neutral court with a very similar talented team, I think a lot of those teams have a very good chance of getting outcoached. I don't think the SEC is full of very good coaches. And come March Madness, a big part of it is, yeah, it's runs, but 25, 30, 40% of it is who your coach is. Can you get the ball to your best player down the stretch and go win? And so I want to say this now. I have a bet going with some guys. I'm not going to tell you the lines we established, but I made a pretty hefty wager that says the SEC will have no Final Four teams. And with this being said, my main hedge is Auburn. So I'm going to hedge Auburn. I don't think Kentucky's good enough to make the Final Four. I don't think Tennessee is good enough. I think these teams are very talented, but they only win at home. I don't think they're gonna be good enough to have anyone in the Final Four but Auburn. So I'm looking at this as a hedge situation. Um, and for myself, I think half those teams lose in the first round. I think it's going to be the most upset loaded March Madness of all time.
That's some high. That's a high prediction right there, man. That's a hot take. That's a
It's a
hot take.
hot take. It's a very hot take, but I'm tired of this SEC thing where these teams are only. You saw the number 7 team in the country go to number 5 Tennessee this past weekend and lose by 30.
Yeah.
No, I mean no good Big East team or Big Ten teams doing that. I mean,
You had a great point about the coaching aspect of it too. Like once you get to the tournament, obviously all these teams are having a great season,
yeah,
and but you're expecting to play all these teams in the SEC for since some of these new head coaches took the job, like a Mark Pope at Kentucky or Coach Kell at Arkansas. He knew the day he took that job, he was going to have this whole SEC gauntlet, so you can kind of keep an eye on the whole year. But as soon as you get to March Madness, you have 4 or 5 days to scout a brand new opponent that you may have no idea about. And guess what? That brand same opponent, they're doing the same thing. They have 5, 6 full days. Everyone has the same amount of time to put like a game plan together, see what things might work, what's not going to work. Do we have to make changes? And so that's where I kind of like your prediction in a sense, because if you go against another great coach, no matter what level it is, they have 4, 5, 6 days to really put something together. And then people will talk about the difference of players. There's great hoopers at all levels.
yeah,
We've seen that with the transfer portal guys going from a mid major or low major, moving up the ranks to a high major. Like there's hoopers everywhere. And so you never know what's going to happen that first weekend in March, March
Are y'all
Madness.
shitting on my boy Bruce Pearl though?
Me?
'Cause I think Bruce is a dog.
Oh,
no,
he's an awesome coach.
no.
So do we
I
think
told you I'm very high on Auburn.
Auburn?
Very high
Yeah,
on
okay,
Auburn.
cool.
I'm
Just
very
want to make
high. I
it clear.
said this. I made this very
Just want to
clear.
make it clear.
My take
Yeah,
is just anything can happen in March.
yeah.
Do I think that
Definitely.
half of the SEC teams that make the tournament are going to get upset? I will say absolutely
Oh
not. But
yeah,
I'm just throwing
I think
out
a good amount of them
Brody
will.
has a
Yeah.
great point to an extent.
To be fair, I wasn't necessarily counting if they got 3-1 seeds. Let's be very fair on that.
That's the issue is we have 3 1 seeds and added probably one or maybe two other SEC teams in that region.
Yeah, Brody heard you say there might be 3-1 seed. That's when it hit him. He was like, oh man,
No, I'm not. I'm not
whatever the
that worried.
stakes were on that bet, you're probably thinking
They're
about it a little bit, huh?
my value's very good on that.
Okay,
Very very good. Yeah,
we're not going to
it's
comment on it though.
yeah.
He got plus odds on that one.
Yeah. We'll move on. I want to talk about the ACC a little bit. You already mentioned Cooper Flag, but Who else besides Duke can do anything in the ACC this year? Is this the weakest ACC conference we've ever seen?
In addition to Duke, I would say I really like Louisville.
Yeah,
I
I like
think
Louisville's team too.
Pat Kelsey's really hit the ground running year one with them. Like he
I
brought in a
think
lot of good transfers. Obviously, a team full of transfers. Like they don't have a returning player whatsoever, and he's really
Right.
gotten them all to buy in. And so they've shown some flashes. Like wow, like they're like that. But then at other times, you never know who you're gonna play. And is that because they're in the ACC? I don't know, but they have some great non-con wins as well. So I really like them in the ACC as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do think those are probably the two ACC teams that have the opportunity to do something and make noise, which is kind of bizarre because we're not talking at all about North Carolina. You know,
it's
yeah. Go ahead.
it's a very similar situation to football that we have right now, and I think it is a big NIL situation going on with the ACC. I simply think it's a coaching situation at the same time. They don't have those star-studded coaches that players want to go play for like the Big East has. I think that's kind of people try to compare the Big East and ACC when you read online and stuff and say they're very similar. The Big East is right now, besides Duke, is miles ahead of the ACC. I think that's due to the coaching staff in the Big East. People want to play for Sean Miller. They want to play for McDermott. They want to play for Dan Early. They want to play for Shaka. I mean, I couldn't name two coaches in the ACC, three coaches in the ACC right now. Besides, you just named one, Pat Kelsey.
Mhm.
That's, I mean,
Well, when you
majority
lose
of
Coach
yeah,
K and
it's
Roy
yeah,
Williams, it's those are your two big ACC coaches for the longest time. I mean, for ever since I think I've started watching basketball, those were the two pillars of the ACC, and both of them are now gone. So it's like, do they kind of lose that? And it's similar with Saban, I think, and we see that as all these transfers. They kind of gave DeBoer a chance this year, but a lot of these guys are going to leave, and a lot of guys left when Saban left. So it's a little bit similar to that, I think. Um, but yeah, I do think the ACC is struggling with kind of the new era of basketball almost with the NIL, with the transfer portal, and everything else going on.
For sure, for sure. I mean, you think about it in the ACC, unlike the Big East, you have football and basketball that you got to raise money for when it comes to
Yeah,
the NIL stuff. So I'm sure that has an effect. Um, when you look at that, obviously some schools may favor one or the other, and so it's
right.
tough. It's tough in the new era of it. But I think
Right.
one team that is kind of slept on, no one really talks about, would be at Clemson.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say
Actually,
too.
they've been good the past couple of years, and I'm looking here now. I've watched them a couple times, but they have some good. They have some decent, or they have a big win against Kentucky in non-conference. I thought that was just looking at it on paper, that was pretty good. And then they're taking care of business in the ACC. Obviously, it's not as good as it has been in the past, but still being able to go win on the road in any conference is hard to do.
Yeah, yeah,
So they've
definitely.
really taken care of business there. They seems like they've only dropped two ACC games, one on the road against Louisville, who's obviously we talked about them really good.
Right.
And then it seems like Georgia Tech got them too in a triple overtime game. So
Man, watch out for those
literally,
jackets.
yeah, literally at any given night, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I do think Clemson's that other team that has a chance, and it's probably in that conversation a little bit. But going back to the bracketology stuff, like I've been talking about, they only have four as of right now. So it's those three that we've been talking about. I'm not sure who the other one is. I can
Probably
get back to you
SMU.
guys on that, but yeah, probably
yeah.
SMU,
Pitt's on the
maybe
bubble,
Wake.
but Pitt had a really bad loss against Michigan the other night. So
Yeah, no, I mean it might. Well, they're also 5-6 in conference, so
yeah,
that's not great for them.
so were we going into Georgetown. So
Yeah, yeah. There's still belief.
Yeah.